Namaste, everybody. Welcome to another seminar series from Index Series Toronto. Today, the topic is Rama Setu, the soul of an incredible civilization and identity. Our speaker here today is Arati Panchal. She works as an assistant editor at Sanatan Tattva. She has a master's in human resources and also a company secretary. A classical dancer and a writer by passion, she also runs a YouTube channel dedicated to Indian traditions, history, and politics. She is an ardent learner of India's history and heritage. With that, Artiji, please take over and we can proceed. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, sir. Jai Shri Ram, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank each one of you for taking out time from your busy schedules to attend this presentation. There's a beautiful shloka in Skand Puran, which says that Ganyante pasavo bhumo, Ganyante divi tarkaha, setu darshana jam punyam sheshin apina Ganyante, which means that the dust grains of the earth may be counted. The stars in the heaven may be counted, but even Shesh Nag, who is said to hold all the planets of the universe on his hoods, cannot count the merits accruing from a visit to Setu. Ram Setu has been an explosive political issue, but somewhere behind this hazy picture of politics, we need to remind ourselves that Ram Setu has a long-standing connection to our traditions, culture, literature, our beliefs. It is an integral part of our heritage. And now is the time to revive once again our past glory, enlighten ourselves with wisdom, and protect our dharma. Well, before I start with the presentation, let's just try to understand something about Ram Setu. Why is it called as Adam's Bridge? So we can understand that Ram Setu is a chain of limestone shoals which are submerged. A shoal is a submerged ridge or a submerged bank which is covered by sand or other unconsolidated material in a place where there is shallow water. It is situated between Pamban Island in Rameshwaram in the southeastern coast of Tamil Nadu and Mannar Island in the northwestern coast of Sri Lanka. The tip of Rameshwaram Island is called Dhanushkodi, from where the bridge was built. And it was built till Thalai Mannar, which is the tip of Mannar Island. So we understand that it is no more a bridge now. It has become a shallow channel, but it was a bridge until 1480, when people used to cross over it while traveling from India to Sri Lanka. In this picture, we can see the existing route of ships to travel. The ships have to circumnavigate Sri Lanka to reach the east and west coasts of India. To cut short the route and to save time and fuel, a canal project was proposed, which was called as Setu Samudram project, and that was to be constructed by dredging the Ram Setu. This project was proposed in the year 2005. In 2005, I remember I was in school and how my teacher explained us the importance of Setu Samudram project, stating how it is going to benefit the economy of Tamil Nadu, how it shall eliminate the circumnavigation of ships around Sri Lanka, etc. But somewhere, she forgot to tell the class how vociferously this project was opposed by various organizations, opposition parties, individuals. Various PILs were filed. Various reports and research papers questioning the viability of the project were released. But still, the UPA government led by Mr. Manmohan Singh turned a blind eye and pressed the green button and signaled the commencement of the project, which was to be built by dredging the Ram Setu. Sadly, what our secular historians who are fed with Western thoughts don't understand is that Lord Ram is not a myth. And the legacy of Ramayana, which includes this beautiful engineering marvel called as Ram Setu, still lives on. And not only this, the legacy of Ramayana also includes rivers, mountains, forests, which still remain in the present even after thousands of years. In fact, there are 214 places in Bharat where Ram visited. We all have grown up listening to the stories of Ram. We have come across heart-touching videos of how poor people donated for Ram temple, which is to be built in Ayodhya, with so much of Shraddha and with whatever little they have. Such a longevity of Ram traditions leads us to believe that understanding Ramayana is understanding Bharat's wisdom, something which our secular historians still think is mythology. Moving forward, the focus areas of this presentation shall be Itihas and the textual references about Ram Setu. The second important point shall be the historical and the cultural importance of Ram Setu. We shall also look at the brief backstory of Setu Samudram project from a political perspective and its impact, and also the economic and the security perspective we'll be covering. So if we'll start with the historical perspective, Ram Setu finds mention in the Yuddh Kand of Ramayana, when after a lot of efforts, Ram learns about Sita's abduction by Ravan and that she's been held captive in Ashokavatika in Sri Lanka. Ram reaches the island, now called as Rameshwaram, and stands at the shores of the sea in despair with helplessness, wondering how can this giant blue be crossed. He then fasts, prays, meditates to the Bhagavan Varun for 3 days. When there is no response from the sea, Ram gets infuriated by the silence of the sea and he picks up his Brahmastra. He shoots the arrow in the sea. The shlokas describe the event as the firing of the arrow causes the water to burn and the earth to explode. Hundreds of meteorites ignite in the sky. Mountains rise, strong winds topple the trees. And then Bhagwan Varun appears out of the waves before Ram and he pleads to stop the destruction. It is the sea which gives a way to cross over it by building a bridge over it. The sea says, Harinam Tarane Ram Karishyami, I'll arrange for the monkeys to cross over me. And I'll ensure that Graha, the crocodiles, na vidimishanti, they will not be aggressive. He also suggests the biological son of Vishwakarma, Nal, to be the chief architect of the bridge. So originally the bridge was called as Nal Setu, but as a token of reverence to Lord Ram, it is popularly called as Ram Setu. Then, to build the bridge, a topography survey was conducted by Nal around the areas of Rameshwaram, Dhanushkodi, and Ramanadi districts. The bridge was built from the tip of Pamban Island, which is called as Dhanushkodi, to Thalaimanar in Sri Lanka. But what not many people know is that to make this bridge, a total number of 3 attempts were made. The first attempt is called as Adi Setu, which was to be built from a point Kodikarai in Tamil Nadu. As you can see in the pic, Kodikarai was a port during Chola period. Kodi means where the land ends and Karai means beach. There is also a monument there which is called as Ramar Padam, meaning Rama's footprints. There is also a mandap there in which there's a stone engraved Ramar Padam, which signifies that Ram visited this place. It also signifies their aborted effort for bridge construction. And this monument is recognized it was recognized and notified by the British Archaeological Survey of India in 1910. The second attempt was called as Madhya Setu, and it was planned to be built from a coastal village called as Tirupalani, where Lord Ram rested on the grass. And that grass is Darbha grass, which is considered to be sacred in the Vedas. It is also used in the Hindu rituals. To commemorate this event, a temple was constructed where the primary idol is Darbha Sayan Ram, where Ram is sitting in a reclining position on the Darbha grass. The third and the final attempt was made, and that was called as Nal Setu from Dhanushkodi to Thalaimanar. If you understand the construction of the bridge, Valmiki Ramayana has around 22 shlokas on the construction of Ram Setu. It is amazing to note that how our ancestors were so skilled at civil engineering and could build the bridge in 5 days with advanced technology. The shlokas say that the army chiefs of monkeys who resembled mountains, they broke the rocks and trees and the tree trunks and transported the boulders and trees by yantra, that is by mechanical devices. There is a mention of around 14 to 15 types of trees used, like sal was used, dhava, bamboo, kutuj, tilak, Tunisia, bilva, mango, karnika, ashoka. Tumultuous sound occurred when rocks were thrown into the sea. Strings were attached to keep the rocks intact, and it was a proper engineered architecture. Our ancestors were aware of foundation. They were aware of pore pressure theory. They were aware of linear alignment. And all this was done under the guidance of Null. So if from the shlokas, if we want to understand the vertical profile of the bridge, it had the sea bed at the base. Above it was the rock outcrops. Then we had tree remnants and barks, followed by rock boulders, small stones and pebbles. And then at the top, we had the sand. Valmiki Ramayana says the bridge was 100 yojan long and 10 yojan wide. It took 5 days to be built. 14 yojanas were constructed on first day, 20 yojanas on second day, 21 yojanas on third day, 22 yojanas on fourth day, and 23 yojanas on the fifth day. Now one may wonder, what is a yojan? And one yojan is how many kilometers? A yojan is a Vedic unit of measuring distance. It was used to measure distance between Earth and other heavenly bodies. Ramayan too measures distances in yojans. Ram walked on foot through length and breadth of the country, and the distance covered by him are measured in yojans. According to Vishnu Puran, one yojan is 12.2 kilometers. Aryabhatta also says the same thing. The Balkand of Ramayan mentions the measurement of Ayodhya city in yojans. In Mahabharat also, when Hanuman narrates Ramayan in brief to Bhima, he tells him that he could jump 100, that he jumped 100 yojans to reach Sri Lanka. So we understand that it's a unit of measurement to measure long distances. Later on came the conversion of yojans into miles and kilometers. And since then, the definition kept varying. Bhargava's dictionary says 1 yojan is 4 kilometers. Apte's Sanskrit to English dictionary says it's 12 kilometers. Arthashastra says it's 8 kilometers. I'm just mentioning few sources. So whatever be the value of yojan, the bridge appeared to be large and huge as per Valmiki Ramayana. Let's understand whether Ram Setu is man-made or natural. There are two theories. One says that it is a man-made structure. The other says it's natural. The submerged organic material needs to be analyzed for composition and dating. If we find some pattern and layers of stone and sand, only then we can know that there has been a human intervention. The fact is, till now, no underwater research has been done. But finally, we have a good news after a long wait. In January 2021, the Modi government approved an underwater research to ascertain when and how Ram Setu was formed. Few theories say that Ram Setu is a volcanic ridge. But the fact is there are no volcanic activities in the land area, nor in the ocean region of Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is part of the peninsular shield, which is geologically old and stable. Other theories say that it is a submarine linear platform with graben and horsts. Graben and horsts are the features of folding activity as shown in the pic. But then such structures and landforms are not found in the ocean region of Bay of Bengal. Some say it is a coral island formed by the accumulation of dead coral polyps. One must understand that corals can grow just like an anthill on the submerged stones and gravel. There are coral islands in Rameshwaram. There are coral islands in Tuticorin, but they are in the coastal and offshore areas and are not in the Sedbridge area. Some say it is an anticlinal ridge. Anticlinal ridge is when the folding of rocks takes an arc shape, just like in the pic. But then there is no folding activity yet. There is a presence of loose marine sand below, which according to the geologists is 4,000 years old. Whereas the stones above the sand are 7,000 years old. And it indicates that these are not natural and are transported. So Ram Setu happened, and we need extensive research to be undertaken. Ram Setu definitely has a strong historical and a cultural connection, which no theory can deny. Let's look at the importance of historical and cultural connection. The confluence of waters is an extremely elevating phenomenon for Hindus. On holy days, Hindus make a point to bathe wherever there is Nadi Sangam or Sagar Sangam. It is believed that pilgrimage to Setu is a purification and a sort of rebirth, and therefore one should stay there for either 9 months or 9 weeks or 9 days. In fact, there is a beautiful shloka in Gautam Smriti which says that bathing in Ganga and Yamuna will give you tenfold merit. Bathing in Krishna, Godavari, and Tungabhadra will give you ninefold merit. Bathing in Kaveri will give you eightfold merit. But bathing in Dhanushkodi will give you 160-fold merit for one single bath. This is also a tirth where Tarpanam or Pitra worship is performed for ancestors. They are remembered and invoked to bless the present and the future generations. Also, special pujas are done to beget progeny to be blessed with a child. We have definitely come across Indian names such as Setu Raman, Setu Madhav, Setu Sundar, or Setu. These names are not only popular in Tamil Nadu but all over India and Sri Lanka. Setu also represents the unity of North and South India. The chief priests of Rameshwaram come from a state of Uttar Pradesh, just like the northern shrines of Pashupatinath and Kashi Vishwanath are served by southern priests. If we understand the traditions, a pilgrim has to bring waters of Ganga, which must be used for the worship of Rameshwaram. And when a pilgrim leaves Rameshwaram, he has to take the water of Rameshwaram to Prayag in the north and return it to the Ganga there. Now, these amazing traditions show us the cultural oneness of India and how every corner of her geography is equally revered. Adi Shankaracharya had established four primary centers of pilgrimage in the farthest corners of India. Puri, Dwarka, Badrinath, and Rameshwaram is one of them. Setu is also sacred to Buddhism, Islam, Christianity. The Lanka Avatar Sutra of Buddhism, Lanka Avatar literally means arrival in Lanka. It says that Buddha walked across the bridge to reach Adam's Peak, what was called as Vishnu Padam. And according to Abrahamic religions, Islam and Christianity, Adam or Adam was the first man on the earth. And after he was banished by God from the Garden of Eden, he walked across the bridge to reach Adam's Peak. Even Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, in his book Wings of Fire, he mentions how Muslim fishermen river Setu and they assist Hindu pilgrims to reach Setu Mandiram. And the fisher folk who venture out to collect algae in the shores always take care not to damage any part of Ram Setu. Any act of damaging is believed to bring bad luck. Ram Setu is also a sacred memory to the Indian Ocean rim states like Indonesia, Thailand, Cambodia, Malaysia. Setu is enshrined in sculptures in many of these countries. Do you know the earth in Rameshwaram is looked upon with respect and reverence? Even today, there is no cultivation of soil using a tractor or a plow. People ready their farms by using only small shovels. But why is it so? The earth in Rameshwaram is considered sacred because Ram installed Shivling made of earth of Rameshwaram, which was worshipped by Sita. Even during the Shera every year, dance dramas depicting Rama's life are enacted across the globe, especially in east of Asia, where they never fail to mention the Setu Bandhan. And lastly, there has been frequent invasions of Ceylon from the time it was colonized by an Indian king, King Vijaya, in the 6th century. The invasions became more frequent as the relations with Pandya and Chola kingdoms increased. There has been migration of thousands of artisans, coolies, and Tamil immigrants from India to Sri Lanka. The transport of armies must have involved the use of ships on a large scale, and the Setu must have frequently broken by the rulers to obstruct the invaders. You know, a king named Krishnama Nayak of Madurai in the 16th century, he invaded Ceylon, and even now, you can find his statues on either side of Nandi in Rameshwaram temple. There have also been references of Setu in various forms of maps, textual evidences, coins, inscriptions, and government records. The Atlas of South Asia by Schwarzberg map clearly shows Ram Setu as Setu Bandh Rameshwaram in its 1978 edition. Here we can see a map which was drawn by Joseph Parkes, an Australian botanical explorer, who shows Ramar Bridge as Ramar Coil in 1788. Then only in 1804, in the map produced by J. Rennell, the first Surveyor General of India, the name Ramarpadam, Ramar Bridge was changed to Adams Bridge. It is out of my imagination that how come the Ram Bhakts did not notice the name change even after 70 years of independence. The bridge was called as Ramayan Bridge till 1860. There are many scriptures which also mention about Ram Setu. Let's see a few of them. Apart from the 85 shlokas in Ramayan, Kalidas Raghuvamsha mentions that when Ram and Sita took a long journey through air from Lanka, Ram compares Setu as Milky Way, and he says, "See Sita, the Setu of mountains dividing this bubbly ocean, just like how a Milky Way divides the sky." In Mahabharata also, Ved Vyasji refers Setu as Nal Setu, and he says that even today, Setu is sustained out of respect for Rama. Rig Ved also mentions about Ravan being killed through the construction of a bridge. Lankavatara Sutra, like we already discussed, of Mahayana Buddhism, it says that Buddha walked across the bridge to reach Adam's peak, what was called as Vishnupadam then. Agneya Puran mentions that when Ram tells to Varun Dev, the god of the sea, that you are the guardian of this region, please guard my Setu and Lord Ishwar in this region, and you will be known as a guardian of Setu. Padma Puran also mentions about Setu. In fact, it mentions about the breaking of bridge. When Vibhishan tells Ram that many men will cross this bridge and they will cause me annoyance, how am I supposed to fight them? Then Ram takes up his arrow and he breaks the bridge at two places. Kurma Puran also mentions that when Ram established the Shivling, then Mahadev and Parvati appeared and they gave the boon that as long as Setu stands, Shiva will dwell here invisibly. The other Purans which mention about Ram Setu are Vishnu Puran, Garud Puran, Brahma Puran, Skand Puran, the lengthiest of all the Purans, dedicates one whole chapter to describing in detail the significance of Setu. We also have Smritis like Manu Smriti, which talks about the importance of bathing. Parashara Smriti also talks on purification of mind after taking bath. The other Smritis are Galava Smriti, Gautam Smriti, Devala Smriti, and Marichi Smriti. There have been numerous travelers who were left awestruck with the beauty of Rameshwaram. A pilgrim describes Dhanushkoti as nature's own temple, where the spirit of a pilgrim directly comes in touch with the infinite. Let's go through some of the travelogues. Marco Polo, in his book, while describing remarkable places and kings in the eastern part of the world, mentions about Ram Setu. Then we have William Jones in his book Discourses Delivered Before the Asiatic Society, defines the expanse of Bharat from Kashgar to Ram Setu. Kashgar is 600 kilometers north of Kashmir, and now it is the part of China, the Xinjiang region. And this area was then known for the old Silk Route. We had Arnold Herman, who also described the expanse of India from Ganges to Ram Setu at Ceylon. There were many coins issued by rulers of both Sri Lanka and Bharat. These are the copper coins that were issued by rulers of Jaffna, and which had Nandi on one side, which is a Shiv symbol, and Setu on the other side, indicating that rulers were expected to safeguard the Setu. There are many inscriptions too about Ram Setu. This is an inscription from Hampi, which states that the king of Vijayanagar, Krishna Raya, he was such a glorious king that his fame reached from Mount Meru to Ram Setu. And then how can our yoga forget such an important tradition of Setu Bandhan? This is a Setu Bandhan posture by a yoga abhyasi. If we see the government records, as I said in the earlier slides, the Ramarpadam is a temple in Kodikarai where the first attempt to build the bridge was aborted. So here is a mandap where there is a stone engraved Ramarpadam, signifying that Ram visited this place and it is recognized by the It was notified by the British Archaeological Survey of India in 1910 as part of the government record. Let's have a look at the political perspective, the backstory of Setu Samudram project. We can see that there are many committees which were set up, which proposed the project. The latest news is that just 15 days back, the government of Tamil Nadu has urged the Prime Minister to reactivate the stalled Setu Samudram project. Now, looking at the table, we know that before independence, around 9 committees were set up for the project, and they were dropped each time owing to the economics of the project. And after independence, 5 committees were set up. Let's understand the various alignments which were proposed. The first alignment, like you can see in the pic, was recommended by the first committee, Mudaliar Committee, in 1956, which clearly recommended not to touch the Ram Setu, and it recommended a crossing over the Mandapam area. Then in 1961, Venkateshwaram Committee recommended to cut across the Pamban Island. Then in 1996, Lakshminarayan Committee recommended to cross Dhanushkodi. But the recommendations of NEERI, the National Environmental Engineering Research Institute, in 2005 completely changed the nature of the project. NEERI report recommended dredging Ram Setu. If we understand the NEERI report, it completely undermined the marine biodiversity of the region. It failed to take note of the cultural significance. There was no mention of impact of the increased coastal shipping in the region. There was no mention of disaster mitigation. There was no mention of international politics in this region. There was no mention of safeguarding the livelihoods of fishermen. And then the most adharmi karya was done by UPA. They filed a false affidavit in the Supreme Court, in which out of 89 paragraphs of the affidavit, only 2 of them discussed religion. They questioned the existence of Lord Ram. They stated the Ram Setu is a naturally formed structure and neither it is scientifically possible or within ASI's abilities to ascertain. It further stated that no government policy can ever be determined by the issues of faith. There is a shloka in Valmiki Ramayana where Sri Ram instructs Angad to go and convey to Ravan that he shall not enjoy the kingdom for another moment by this adharma that he has done. It was an adharma committed by UPA, and it also met with the same fate in 2014. There has been attempts to build this bridge for last 150 years. Let's try to understand some basic facts of this region. Gulf of Mannar has one of the world's richest marine biological resources. Gulf of Mannar and Palk Bay have world's pure waters. And this is why there are unique species of shank, of conches. It has 36 different types of rare species. There are endangered species in this region like dugongs, dolphins, turtles. There are 17 different species of mangroves. It is the first biosphere reserve of its kind in South Asia. And historically, this place was famous for the production of pearls. Palk Strait receives rivers from India and Sri Lanka, and it also has islands of Sri Lanka. Dredging. The project estimates more than 82 million cubic meters of dredging, which alone accounts for 77% of the project cost. Dredging shall impact concentration of oxygen that shall harm the marine animals. There shall be reduction of coral reefs. There shall be reduction of mangroves. There shall be translocation of species and removal of habitats. Dredging will reduce the photosynthetic rate, resulting into the collapse of the fishing industry. The another issue shall be safety issue. We know that seabed is shallow. It shall be a tightrope transit for ships, and they are likely to be crashed. There's a possibility of oil spills from shipping accidents, which can have serious long-term impacts on the environment. Another is socio-economic impacts. Fishing has been an occupation of 20 million fishermen along the coast. It is through this region the aquatic wealth of Bay of Bengal and Indian Ocean are generated. Oil sardine it is produced, which yields significant income to the fisher folk. There's another issue, which is blasting. The government approved blasting of Ram Setu with RDX explosives, and even Neary reports mentions about it. We all know that sound production is magnified many times in water than in air. And marine animals like dolphins, whales, dugongs, they're very sensitive to the sound, and that shall drive them away. The another big question mark is on the stability of the project. We know that this area is geomorphologically a very unstable area because the current in this area is very fast. The sea is rough between April to August. From June to August, the sea experiences very strong winds. And if we talk about the viability of the project, we have understood that the canal cannot be an all-weather canal because most of the time in the year it experiences turbulent sea. And if the vessels do not take this route, there shall not be adequate profits. And then who will bear the loss? They have already said publicly that it will take 10 to 13 years for the project to even get back what it invested. It will take 20 years to break even. And that is what you call as an economically unviable project. If we talk about the economic wealth of this region, it's tremendous. The Indian Ocean in Hindu scriptures is referred as Ratnakar, which is the mine of gems. Well, yes, here the seabed has large deposits of thorium. As APJ Abdul Kalam once said, Bharat has the largest stock of thorium, and hence we should concentrate more on getting our energy based on thorium, which, if explored, could have a profound impact on India's nuclear program. It is said that they form about 31% of the world's estimated deposits. But then, how do we have such thorium deposits in this region? There's an interesting point that the geologists have made. They say that it is an interaction or the reworking of ocean currents and the counter ocean currents which make for such deposits. And these counter ocean currents are produced by Ram Setu. If we see the security perspective, we all know America wants to establish its hegemony over Bay of Bengal. In fact, it already has its influence in Indian Ocean because of its military base in Diego Garcia, which is an island of United Kingdom. Everyone knows that Park Strait and Gulf of Mannar are historical waters, and only these two countries have the jurisdiction over it. But in 2005, US refused to accept it as a historical waters. In 2007, an American warship, Nimitz, it came to the Chennai Sea, and the naval officer of the ship convened a press meet and declared before the media that the waters between Bharat and Sri Lanka are international waters. This exposed the intention of America. And previously also, America has sent its naval ships in 93, 94, and 1999. China's growing presence in Sri Lanka is also worrisome. In fact, very recently, Sri Lanka approved the ports bill, if you have read, which has given complete control of its Hambantota port to China. So we understand that China is only 290 kilometers away from Kanyakumari. And when these ships of US and China begin to cruise between Bharat and Sri Lanka waters, the security of Bharat will be endangered, burdening our navy to a great extent. Secondly, the Ram Setu also acts as an anti-tsunami bridge. It had saved the coastline during tsunami in 2004. Breaking the Ram Setu will bring the tsunami directly into the Bharat coast, and it shall strike the Kerala coast and some significant parts of Tamil Nadu. Well, aren't there good reasons why Ram Setu should be declared as a World Heritage Site or a national heritage? It's high time that the public of India must be given an opportunity to develop an enlightened and an impartial view on such an important national issue, which deals with the sensitivity of people belonging to many sects and religion and countries in the entire Southeast Asia. Section 295 of the Indian Penal Code says, whoever destroys or damages any place of worship with the intention of insulting the religion shall be punishable with imprisonment and fine. We understand that it is a crime. It should be given some recognition or should be declared as national heritage so no future government can touch it. But then what does it take to be a national heritage? We have an act called as Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act 1958, which defines an ancient monument, any structure or monument which has historical importance, which has archaeological importance, which has artistic importance, and which has been in existence for not less than 100 years. And any such monument can come under this purview, and ASIE is empowered to bring any such monument under its protection. Now, what does it take to be a World Heritage Site? For a World Heritage Site, it must be a unique landmark, which is geographically identifiable, historically identifiable, and has an outstanding value to humanity. There is a point to ponder. Why is Taj Mahal a World Heritage Site and why Ram Setu is not? Ram Setu is much older than Taj Mahal. In fact, now many scientific evidences prove that Taj Mahal is Tejo Mahalaya, an ancient Hindu Vedic temple. Taj Mahal was built by humans on land. Ram Setu was built on water by superhumans. Taj Mahal took 22 years to be built. Ram Setu was built in 5 days, which connected 2 countries. If Taj Mahal is a symbol of love, then even Ram Setu is. Taj Mahal was built after a wife's demise. Ram Setu was built to save Ma Sita, and for that, Ravan was killed, entire Lanka was burned. It shall be a great service to the nation by government if Ram Setu gets some recognition. So far we have discussed our itihas that proves that Ram Setu had been there for thousands of years. Culture. Culture is the highest expression of what it means to be human. Ram Setu should be viewed as a belonging to all humanity. As to the viability of the project, we have seen the reasons why Setu Samudram needs to be scrapped. But even if the government wishes to proceed with it, it must reconsider the issue in its entirety, taking opinions from fishermen to shipping companies, tsunami board, state governments, and go with the recommendations of previous committees and not NEERI. As for security, in the words of former Director General of Indian Coast Guard, Rustam Contractor, he says that there is a strong possibility of the canal being used by militants, terrorists, LTTE to be specific. And we have already understood that there are going to be many stakeholders in the region. So we have reached the end of the presentation. I'd like to conclude it by citing a shloka from Gita. Atita nagata bhavaye cha vartanti sampratam tan kal nirmitan budva na sangyam hatumarsi, which talks about the power of time, the power of Kal. It says that Kal is a creator of all good and bad things in the universe. He is the destroyer of all living beings and he is the cause of their rebirth. We people, we can only act and we can never have the possession of fruits of action. It may happen that all our history may vanish. It may happen that Vedas may depart. It may happen that Sanskrit language may vanish forever. But we must do whatever is in our hands and we must continue to protect our dharma. Today is Guru Purnima. The Guru of Ram, Rishi Vishwamitra, gave him the knowledge of celestial weaponry to kill Rakshas and demons. And Ram fought against adharma. Ram fought for dharma and he fought for Hindutva. Similarly, we need to fight against the adharma around us. And lastly, I'd like to thank Index Studies for giving me an opportunity. And thank you all, the lovely audience, for your patient listening. Dhanyavad.
Okay, thank you, Ardaji. That was a very interesting and informative topic that you discussed. A lot of us do know about the Rama Setu, but the concept that you presented with 4 different aspects of it was very, very informative and very enlightening. So we'll take questions from the audience. We have Anuradhaji here. Anuradhaji, please go ahead and ask the question. Thank you.
You need to unmute. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Yeah, first of all, Namaste Aarti.
Namaste.
Very comprehensive presentation. We probably knew a bit of it, but you put a 360-degree perspective to it. So thank you very much for that. Uh, one small request I have is let's not use Lord Ram. Let's call Sri Ram
Correct.
because Lord has a very colonial connotation. So
Right.
just a
I
request.
agree with you. Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah,
Third,
right, ma'am.
have you traveled to Ram Setu? Have you traveled to these places that you mentioned?
No.
Okay, so let me share. I have traveled to Rameshwaram, Dhanushkodi, and Thalai Manar, and
Okay.
so from the other side, from the Thalai Manar point, you can actually see Rameshwaram temple. It's a huge temple, and
Okay.
at the Sri Lanka and in Mannar, there was a similar temple called Tirukuteshwaram,
Right.
which
I've read about it. Right.
and it was destroyed by the Portuguese, and they are Sri Lankan citizens are now rebuilding that temple. Of course, they can't
Okay.
build it. So I had gone to cover. I had written a story about that temple, so I had gone to cover, and that's when I went to that point in Thalai Manar where you can clearly see, and the locals will tell you that till about 30-40 years back, also you on a low tide you could walk on the bridge. And third, when you spoke about the currents in opposite directions there,
Right.
right,
Yes.
you can see it when you stand at Thalai Manar. You can see that the waves on one side are going in one direction, waves in other side are going in one direction, and they switch regularly.
Right.
So
Very interesting information.
it's a
Yes.
very unique phenomena. Anytime you travel to Sri Lanka, it's a sight to be seen.
Right.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much
much
for
for
that.
this information. Yes. I'll surely travel. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a question in the chat box from Jay Ramanji. His question is, does Sri Lanka also think that Ramasetu is sacred and would like it to be preserved? Do you have any information about that?
Yes. Sri Lanka believes that there was Ram Setu and there is Ram Setu. If I talk about, I've read something about the historians of Sri Lanka, and they are researching on it. There are many mountains which are mentioned in Sundarkan and Kishkindakan, like Trikutta and Suvela mountains. Right. In fact, there is an interesting information that the body of Ravan, it is in a mummified form and it is kept in a cave in a mountainous region by the Naga tribe. And this is the information which they have, and they are also researching on it. And other than that, they are also researching, there are also various sites which they are aware of, and Sri Lanka historian also said that, we want to collaborate with the Indian historians so that we can together make good research. This is what one information I have.
Okay, thank you. Tusharji, please go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, Tushar.
Hi, Aarti. I would like to congratulate, first of all, that you gave such a brilliant presentation. Thank you so much. And
Thank you so much.
I just have a question regarding the yojans which you mentioned about and other references which you gave regarding the measure, a unit of measurement. So I just want to ask you, like, why do you think it varied from different books wherever it is mentioned about the yojans? Why do you think it varied from different books? So that's my question. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you for the question. Okay, so yojan was a unit of a measurement, and we must understand that during the Vedic period, the unit of measurements were quite standardized. Okay, so the word yojan is a Sanskrit word which means plan. So we can understand that this measurement was used to plan towns, forts, and cities. Right. Now, why did they vary? They varied after Britishers came. Okay, like I said, one yojan is around 12 kilometers as per Vishnu Puran. Britishers came and they reduced the measurement from 12 kilometers to 8 kilometers. This is what I have read. Why and why would they have changed? It was only because to fudge the records. It was because to snatch away the lands of Indians. And one more thing I'd like to mention, that it is very interesting to note how the things were measured. It was measured as per the human body. Now, for example, there is a unit of measurement called as angula. Angula is the average diameter of the middle finger, which is 1.6 centimeters. Another unit of measurement is the vitasti. Vitasti is the span of from the middle finger from the thumb. That is vitasti. And there is hasta, which is another measurement, which is from the middle finger till the elbows. And then there is goyuta, which is gavyuta, which is called as gavyuta. That was the distance from where you can hear the cow moo in a silent environment. So 4 gavyutis were 1 yojan. Yes, so we can understand that the measurement is a very vast subject. If you're really interested to know about it, you must read Brahman Puran, which has an exhaustive list of measurements. Thank you.
Thank you, Aartiji. So there are a couple of questions in the chat box. So one is from Amit DG. He says his question is, what would be our position if after research by ASI it is found that the Setu is nature or natural? Because he has read some research papers where it is mentioned that it is a natural, what do you say, natural formation as against a man-built formation.
There are many research papers which say that it is natural. We must understand that historians are they have the Western minds, and they never believed in Ram. It was always a myth. So once you have this belief, you can never do the research, right? But we do also have papers which say that it is a man-made structure. In fact, there are some materials on the bridge which have not eroded. There are some material on the edges of the bridge which have not eroded. Okay, so like I said, the sand is of like 4,000 years old, whereas the stones above it are 7,000 years old. And this cannot be possible. We need an extensive research on it. And like I said, there's so many references. Like even after that, if we are doubting our culture, then it's not right? So I think an extensive research is needed, but Ram Setu was there for sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This next question is kind of a follow-up on the previous question about sacredness of the Ram Setu to Sri Lanka. So the question is, if the Setu allowed for the invasion of the Sri Lanka, then why does Sri Lanka have positive reasons to value the Setu?
Well, it's history, right? Sri Lanka now, of course, it's a part of their history, and even they are entitled to know about it. Now, where does this thought comes that why should we research because we were invaded? Now, that is not like that's not the way to look at things. Why would they not be interested? There were so many events happened in Sri Lanka. There are so many mountains and forests and rivers which are described in the Sundarkand and Krishna Kand. And why wouldn't they want to know about it? That is what I have to say.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is with respect to your point about the Rama Setu being declared as a World Heritage. So what can we do to make it possible? Like what are the attempts that have been going on? Are there any attempts, or if not, then what can be done from this point to declare the Ram Setu as a World Heritage Site?
To declare a World Heritage Site, only a government, only UNESCO site can declare it. But for that, we need to have authentic research on it. And thankfully, the government has come forward, and we will have an extensive research very soon. And that will form the base for Ram Setu to be declared as World Heritage Site. We really need to fight for our dharma. Anything that we can do, we need to fight for our dharma. This is so true. You know, uh, the other civilizations, they always believed the survival of the fittest, whereas we people never believed in that. We never conquered even one nation or one race because we believed in the survival of conscious. We were conscious enough to an extent that we knew how to survive. We sacrificed, our ancestors sacrificed everything for us. So we need to understand the philosophy of Bharat. It is sacrifice, it is selfless, it is selflessness, it is service, which keeps us the longest living civilization in the world. So of course we need to fight for dharma, because I think we have become so much distanced from the roots, from our roots. And if you ask a college going kid in Mumbai, okay, what are the four Vedas, or what are who wrote Ramayana, who wrote Mahabharat, he may not know. And so we need to go back to our roots. And it doesn't mean we have to read Purans or Upanishads or Vedas, because not everyone has it's not everyone's cup of tea. The only thing to protect our dharma we can do, to start with the basic things, okay? Every journey starts with a single step. So let's stop cutting birthday cakes. Let's visit to temples on our birthdays. Let's learn Sanskrit language. Let's observe fasts on Purnima or Ekadashi. Such simple practices, only when we have in our habits, only then change is possible. And that is how you fight for our dharma, and that is how you inspire others to follow their dharma. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a question about where can we get information on the actual building of the bridge?
Actual building of the bridge you can find in the Valmiki Ramayana, which has 22 shlokas on the building of the bridge. That is an authentic source we have.
Now, there's a question about the type of rock. There's a type of volcanic rock called the pumice stone, which floats on water. Could this stone have been used for building the Rama Setu?
Yes, there is a theory called as pumice stone theory. Pumice is a hardened lava rock, which is lightweight, and it has air bubbles in it. So when the water enters the air bubbles, the stone sinks, right? So there are some studies which say that the bridge would have been of pumice stone, and after the water entered the air bubbles, it got submerged. But this theory is dismissed by many of the scientists because there are no volcanoes in that area. There is only one volcano, which is in Andamans, I know, in the Barren Island. And it wouldn't have been possible to travel to Andamans to Barren Island and then bring the rocks. So that it is a theory, but that is dismissed by the scientists. Yeah.
Please go ahead, Sharmila ji.
Yeah, thank you, Aarti. It was a wonderful talk and very informative. Now, there are lots of naysayers. Whenever I'm in the scientific community, and I know that even among genuine scientists, there are many naysayers who otherwise would believe in the authenticity of King Solomon's temple and so on and so forth. But one way to quieten them is to point out what you said in the latter part of your videos, the huge security risk of allowing that passage to become international waters. Now, nobody can contest that. And if we energize people and make it a point of aggressive activity to pinpoint this fact, and also the fact somebody has pointed out in the chat that it could be used as a passage for thorium smuggling. Correct. We already know that some years ago, which was hushed up by the UPA government, there was massive thorium theft from the Kerala beaches, So I think with this, we can really aggressively, without even invoking Ram Setu, and also to the environmentalists, show them
Right.
what hypocrites they are. Because on one hand, they talk about, going against the dams, etc., and the water canal connecting the northern Indian rivers with the southern Indian ones. And on the other hand, they are willing to sacrifice the unique ecological niche that this Ram Setu represents. So in all counts, we can, without going into Ram so much, because I know
There are
that
enough reasons. Yes, yes.
there are enough reasons. Why I'm saying that is that the moment you mention the word Ram in any scientific conference, people just roll their eyes and write you off as a diehard, what should I say, bhakt or whatever they like to call people.
Right.
They have these typical names, name calling. So they dismiss the issue altogether. But if we attack it science for science, then we not only save the Ram Setu archaeologically and for the belief system that it represents, and to us Hindus, the importance as a heritage, but also we safeguard economy and, as you rightly said, the national security perspective. Thank you.
Right, right.
Question about the water level. So each year the water level rises, and if there is any data available as to how much water has risen above the Setu, so can you use that to predict the age of the Setu?
Okay. Okay. The water levels have been increasing and decreasing. There was an age called as ice age when the water levels were reducing, right? And that age continued till the Chola regime. So Chola regime had their capital city called as Pompuhar, which was on the coastline, and now which is submerged. So now why is it submerged? Because water levels have risen. There have been changes in the water levels. Not only water levels, there have been changes, a lot of geological changes, be it soil erosion, global warming, the tectonic plates, everything. So yeah, I don't have the exact like how much water reduced and how much it rose, but I just know that there are many changes, and yes, it decreased during the ice age, and then there was an increase in the water levels.
Okay. So, we don't really have any more questions now, so we can conclude this session.
Correct.
And so thank you once again, everybody.
Thank
for
you so
attending.
much. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
everyone.
Aarti
Thank
ji,
you.
and we hope to see you again. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.